Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Survivor NSFW Rewind, Professor Tim Watches Borneo. I am your host, Karen Eisenberg, and I'm here, as always, with Professor Tim Wilson. Tim, how are you doing today?
Hello. Well, as always, I'm on great form, and
No concerns about that.
I think I'm on great form. I never quite know really, and I'm anticipating a few phone calls immediately after this, so I will run away quite quickly. But I'm very excited.
Yeah, and I mentioned we are going to be discussing episode 5 of Survivor Borneo, the Dirk Boot. We are also joined today by the great Rachel Wagner of the Hallmarkies podcast.
Howdy.
Hi, welcome.
Yes. It's great to be here. This was really fun to get to revisit. It's been so long since I watched this episode.
So Rachel is a podcaster, but she doesn't talk about Survivor or anything related to it. She's a big Survivor fan. That's how I know her. That's how we know each other. But her podcast is the Hallmarkies podcast is about Hallmark movies.
Yeah, I'm a film critic, and so I review movies as well on my other content. But yeah, I have the Hallmarkies podcast as my most popular content that I do. And yeah, we review all things rom-com, all things Christmas.
These are the things which my partner loves watching in our life on Channel 5.
All right, yeah,
and many films about Christmas,
yes.
And many films about sort of people who invite a friend over, and this friend is sort of lethal.
Yeah, those are on the Lifetime channel, but yeah, then they have the and
this is Hallmark.
Cautionary tales.
I thought Hallmark was all about Christmas cards. Is it the same company?
Well, they are associated. They are the same company, but then they have the Crown Media branch that does the films, TV, that kind of thing, and then they have the ornament brand company. They have the card company.
I'm so impressed because I've watched quite a few of these, or at least I've come in halfway through. One or two of them I've fallen asleep in, but that's usual anyway. I fell asleep in Rocky, so it's no comment on the film.
Yeah, they make they make cozy mysteries, and then they make Christmas movies and romantic movies, and it's just a lot of fun.
Now, the part of this that Rachel might not be picking up on is, Tim, your partner is from Turkey, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Now, is he a Christian?
No, he's Muslim.
Right, so that's what I find. So, Rachel, that's the point. So, Tim's partner, who is a Muslim, is fascinated by the Christmas movies.
Oh, but if you go to Turkey, you see innumerable little things of Santa Claus because Santa was Turkish. Saint Nicholas comes from Cappadocia.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty secular as far as Christmas movies. They're
yes, they are quite.
They're not really religious at all. So we have a lot of fun covering them, and Christmas in July is coming up, and we got a lot of fun stuff planned, and so we're really excited.
Yeah. Middle of July, it's snowing, and great fun. I'm always, and I find. This sort of movie is quite entertaining. Yeah. I find it quite entertaining. What brings you to Survivor?
Oh, I have been a Survivor fan for years. I kind of fell out in the middle section, and then came back to it around like South Pacific, and I got really involved in the podcasting community as far as Survivor, and that's kind of where I first got introduced to the whole idea of podcasting. With Rob has a podcast, and I was a very early patron of Rob. I was I think I was one of the first 10 patrons, so I've been supporting him for a long time, and I just love the strategy, and I think it's really fascinating, and just to see that social and human dynamic play out every season. It's I've been kind of bummed out the last couple seasons. The 40 was really good, but they have a bunch that were a little too gimmicky for my taste. I prefer the true strategy, and so that was kind of a bummer. But I still love the show, and I love when people can talk about it without being ridiculous. I guess when you have really good discussion.
I'm a Survivor virgin. Literally, I am on episode 5, and I have never seen Survivor. I've only seen 5 episodes of Survivor now. I haven't seen anything beyond episode 5. It's a new world to me. I'm more than that. I'm in a really strange position of actually being a part of the reality TV world. I've been on reality TV, and I know nothing about it. So this is all extraordinary. And I have these little conversations and text exchanges with Karen, who is the voice of sanity in my head. And we had a few exchanges today, and I'm this week, and I must say, Karen, you're so bang on, so bang on. It's what's so interesting and what is compelling about Survivor is actually the same thing that is compelling and interesting about the show I was on, which was The Circle, which is that it is a sort of social experiment, and that you get an opportunity of seeing people under pressure, interacting. That I think is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. I'm not a fan of strategy, partly because I think I do it better than anybody else, and I don't like other people getting in my way.
See, I think I would be terrible at Survivor.
Would you?
Yeah, I think
I would be also.
What do you think? I think I would be really bad. I just get, especially when I get when in those kind of situations, I get really emotional, and that's like the worst kind of person to play Survivor. So I think I would be one of those like weepy people that everyone hates.
You can come and weep on my shoulder.
Yeah,
it'll be fine. I'll take all the decisions for you.
Yeah,
you can just you can weep.
And, if I'm under a lot of stress, I get real emotional. No. I'm not I admire the strategicians and everything, but I think I would be very bad at Survivor. But and I'm terrible at lying. I'm a horrible liar, so I would be really bad.
Really?
Yeah, everyone immediately if I try to no, I'm really bad. So I mean, then that's good in real life, but in Survivor, it would be bad.
Well, I think lying is such an interesting concept, because on the one hand, I think it's very, very difficult to do. I don't think I do it terribly well, and I was very relieved in my show that I didn't have to, because you've got to be consistent with it. You've got to keep it up.
Right.
But on the other hand, lying. By any other, so if you put lying in print, it's called a novel, and we celebrate people like Dickens and even back to Chaucer for their ability to lie consistently, page after page after page. And if you're Jeffrey Archer, I suppose you do that in real life as well. And but it's so we've got a sort of double standard in society. On the one hand, we think lying is not commendable.
I don't know if I think that creating fiction is necessarily lying, but it's telling us. Yeah, I would say it's telling a story that's completely fictional, completely.
Isn't that a lie?
Like a lie is saying something that's real is not true, right?
Isn't that fiction?
That this is fictional, but nevertheless, we probably should start talking about the episode.
Absolutely we should. But, sorry, I don't mind.
We use the episode as a jumping off point for discussion. Right. Okay. We don't necessarily have to discuss every little conversation and every little thing. So as long as everybody is having fun and we are discussing interesting stuff, then I'm here to kind of guide you. But if you two are having an interesting discussion about lying, which is obviously, no, really, but it is absolutely essential in a game like Survivor or in the more modern series of The Circle. I
felt, Karen, that there was one moment in today's series, in today's episode, where there was quite a large porky told, and there was a very direct lie to camera.
Which one are you referring to?
Richard.
About the alliances, you mean?
Yes, and it was so direct. I think he actually believed it. So
well,
we know exactly.
If you can convince yourself, that can be one of the steps of becoming a good liar. But it is very interesting, Tim, that I'm that I'm watching Survivor with you, which again, so far has not been so strategic. But even in this season, right, we're going to see much more strategy popping up once we get to the merge in 2 more episodes. And then it will get more interesting, I would call it strategically. And we might just find that you don't enjoy those aspects of the game. But I hope that that's not true.
Well, no, you see, I have a sort of double standard on lying and on strategy. I think I admire people who can do it. But then, and whether they convince me, generally they don't. But I would generally egg them on because I want to see where they're going with it. I find that endlessly fascinating, and I will believe them. You tell a good story, I will believe it. I want to be that sort of willing suspension of disbelief. We're back to the idea of the novel. I want to be deceived. I want to be entertained, and I have the truth all the time. I quite relish the opportunity for somebody to come and embellish that with something interesting that I haven't
typically
thought.
Before the merge, there isn't as much strategy because you have you have a little bit more need to keep and I guess this is a form of strategy, but it's not as cutthroat because you need to keep your tribe strong in order to win the challenges. So your strategy has to be a little bit skewed, and you keep people that you might even lose people that you would otherwise keep because you have this element of the challenges, which when it's each man for himself. After or herself after the merge, I think the strategy becomes a little bit more interesting. After
it's interesting that in the preamble by your fellow, I forget his name now,
but the host.
In that preamble, he says every man. Every man is he sexist? I can't remember, but this is everyone for themselves, and I hadn't picked that one up before. And Karen, you know from my background, I slightly disapprove of that. But I hadn't realised that was part of the strategy of the game from the very beginning.
Oh, that there was going to be deception, you mean?
No, that it was very much a sort of everyone on their own.
Once you have the tribes merged and there's no longer tribe rewards and tribe immunity, then it's every person. You still have alliances, you still have other, but as far as immunity goes, immunity.
But it seems to be this sort of thing seems to be built into the program, which I find. I mean, it seems to be present in all the other programs that I've seen, except from my point of view, from the show that I was engaged in. But then I think possibly I was so obsessed with the idea that reciprocity and friendship were essential to the show that I imposed this, perhaps on my own show. But I did have willing accomplices in at least 2 other players, Woody and Ella. But
people still have alliances after the merge, but as far as your immunity, you need to keep your tribe strong before the merge. So you don't want, so your voting is just a little bit different than after. So this is episode 5, so we're still early.
Right. And also in later seasons of Survivor, we definitely see people playing for themselves from the beginning. Yes, they are in a tribe, and yes, there are, immunity and reward is done in teams. But these people now are much more aware from the beginning. Yes, you want to keep the tribe strong, but maybe you also want to get rid of that guy who might be competition for you or clearly wants you gone.
Yeah.
There seem to me to be 3 things. Three things essential to today's episode. and they all seem to me to converge in this idea of deception or a lack of coherence. There was Colleen and Greg, who seem to be living a life of their own, and actually the TV isn't interested in them and that life, although it flagged it up as one of the things to be looking out for last week. It's interesting, a sort of tittle-tattle, which I find slightly cheap. That belongs to Love Island. The second thing.
Wait. So you know what, Tim? Let's address each of those in turn. So you want to talk about Colleen? No, just with Colleen. Okay. You want to lay it out? I'm sorry. Lay out all three, and then we'll go back.
The second one was Dirk, and I simply didn't see Dirk's departure coming at all. Sorry for the sorry for spoiling the end. But I didn't expect that at all. I was thinking Dirk was my little hero who I was going to support and see through to the final episode, and obviously he's gone. So I was mistaken on that one. But I also felt that he was sort of abandoned. And he was saying things which there was a subtext there that he was feeling abandoned, and I thought that was rather sad. And the third thing was Richard's lie about the alliances, and that was sort of bookended with the thing at the very beginning about where you see him setting up the alliance with Sue and Kelly and talking about the alliance quite openly,
and then lying to Probst about it,
and then lying. I just don't understand it. You know, isn't he going to watch the program again? I don't understand. If you've got a camera trained on you all the time, how on earth can you lie with impunity? You can't. You're going to get found out.
Well, only if you think you are a good liar, right? And again, you can go on these shows. Right, Rachel, help me out here. If you were a person who is just unwilling to lie in a game, can you win? I'm talking about.
I mean, the only way you could win is if you were up against somebody else that everybody else hated.
Right.
That's the only way that a bad liar could win at Survivor.
Really?
But generally, right, there has to be a certain, because of the way these games are laid out, and even in other seasons of The Circle, but less so than in a game like Survivor or Big Brother, lying is just kind of part of the fabric of the game. And there's a whole question about, if you lie too much, then you get to a point where nobody believes you. But the idea that you can play one of these games all the way through to the end and win, other than, like Rachel said, if you are the kind of person who you're up, there's a final two and the other person has just been able to alienate everybody, right? Then yes, you can kind of fall into a victory. But short of that, right, these games kind of preclude or assume, especially as we go on, I shouldn't say this because at the time that this was originally airing, not only was the lying controversial, but even the existence of the alliance was controversial.
Right. It was seen as something kind of underhanded. Right. And now it's just, par for the course.
If anybody were to say, I think even in season 2, right, if anybody just said, oh, I don't believe in alliances, you wouldn't survive. Nobody would want to work with you. There really was people turned around on that. I would say somewhere between, like I said, the end of season 1 and the beginning of season 2.
Yeah, it's true.
So let's just go through some of the stuff from the episode, but you've hit on the big points, right? Dirk goes home, Tagi makes an alliance and Rich lies about it, and Greg and Colleen are getting closer. Those are the 3 of the big points. And then we're also going to talk about the competitions and things like that.
Yeah.
So with Pagan.
Could I just ask before we go on? Rachel, who's your favorite character in Borneo?
I don't know. I guess Rudy, maybe he's my favorite. He's fun.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And who's your? This is the horrible one. You don't need to answer this if you think you're going to cause offense. But who's your least favorite?
Who's
we're going to put Rachel on the spot.
Maybe Gretchen. Maybe Gretchen's my least favorite.
You don't like Gretchen? Interesting.
She's kind of a complainer.
So far, up to episode 5, she seems a little bit sort of forceful and schoolmarmish. And
Well,
I
at that
find
point, she's the only adult left on the dock.
it's
Right.
not always attractive being the only adult in a party.
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty interesting cast. I mean, Sean is sort of frustrating with his alphabet.
Yeah,
We haven't gotten to that yet.
It's quite difficult identifying who Sean is, and I keep getting Sean and Dirk mixed up. But obviously, I'm not going to have that problem in future.
I don't know. What about you? Who's your?
No, other people definitely saw them as a unit, Tim, because back in the day, we talked about when Mario was on, right? With episode 3, we talked about Survivor Sucks and the
and you teased me with thinking that Dirk was going to survive for a lot longer than he has.
But Dirk and Sean were widely known as the Wonder Twins.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
But
Dirk does have a life beyond Survivor, doesn't he? He has survived Survivor.
Yes, but I don't know where he is. I think he is one of these people who has just kind of fallen off the face of the earth in terms of from the fan community. I haven't heard anything about him in a very long time. Have you, Rachel?
Mm-hmm. No, but I'm not on the. I'm not in that kind of following the players kind of world.
Bay is a great survivor.
Bay was on The Circle with Tim, so Bay is also a TV star and knows it apparently.
Looks like in the chat that other agree that Stacey or Gretchen least favorite. So I'm not alone there about Gretchen.
And Gervais. I like Gervais. And I think he comes into his own in this episode as well. I think he sort of throws himself into things.
Yeah. He has his unlikable moments, but those
and there will and yes, the next episode is we get to see Jerv being unlikable. But let's just kind of go through. Yeah, well, that was at the next time on Survivor, right?
I thought the scene with Rich and the snake was really classic.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? We're kind of going all over the place. So I'm going to wrest control of the podcast to myself, and let's kind of go through this loosely in chronological order so that we can talk about one thing at a time.
Okay.
So Ramona has left. Greg has an ear infection, and this was not a big deal on the show, but apparently he was quite sick, and he kind of checked out. And I think they weren't even sure if he was going to be able to continue.
But he was the life and soul of the show. He was life and soul of the episode, wasn't he? I mean, that moment where he starts doing channeling Russ Tamlin with West Side Story towards the end of the
That was a good moment. That was fun.
He's in tune. He's he's on the beat, and he's about to go off into a little dance step, and then the camera leaves. And I think, why are you leaving him? Best bit in the show.
Well, that moment also is really interesting because these days, at least, and maybe they found this out after the fact, that when Greg sang that song, that opens the producers up to a claim for royalties. So generally on Survivor or Big Brother, whatever, you can't sing a song that was written by somebody else. You can't even sing Happy Birthday.
You can't. Happy Birthday is copyright.
I think it just lost copyright, but I could be wrong about that.
Yes,
I think it just went into public domain, but yeah, you can't, and so that was a fun moment. What you're more likely to get now is things like the little fashion show that we had this last season. Right. That's sort of more of those kind of fun moments, but you don't get them as much, I feel like, now. I mean, part of that is because they do things like Edge of Extinction, which take up all the time, so you don't have time for fun moments.
Right. We've talked about that. That is, the more they put more and more trinkets into the game, and there's a tipping point.
Second, in space of 5 episodes, this is our second musical interlude.
Right. But the first one, actually, with Sonia, apparently that was something where that's a song that she had written, or she'd at least written the lyrics, I think, and that's how they were able to get around it. But I was really... How did
they get around West Side Story? Because what's his name? Bernstein was lethal in the right department, and if you do West Side Story, you have to have the full orchestra. You have to follow all the original production values.
Right. I am just guessing. I did not find any references to this in any of the stuff that I was reading. But chat, if you have seen something, please let me know in terms of what happened. The decision to include the song in the show. And again, I'm just wondering whether they were even aware of the issue right, until it aired, like you said, and then Mr. Bernstein or somebody else comes along and says, hello, you just played my song on national television. I need royalties.
Well, I hope it'd say, hello, that boy can sing. Let's have him in a show.
But it was a fun moment. It was. It was nice.
Has Greg gone on to star on Broadway? Can we find Greg in
Greg has been found. I actually don't know exactly what Greg is doing for a living or anything like that, but they have talked about bringing him back a few times, and it has never happened. So he's not really plugged into the fan community. But unlike somebody like Ramona or Colleen, right, who have just disappeared off the face of the earth.
He should have a professional career beyond reality TV with a voice like that and a personality like that.
How do we feel about Sean and Dirk fishing all day for 3 days?
Right. And I'm going to put the fishing in quotes.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a line in the water. It's very clear. So it's good that we're talking about this. So Tagi, is at the beginning of the episode. They're getting together and they're talking about how they're getting on. Both tribes are verbalizing the fact that people are getting on each other's nerves. So both Kelly and Sue, and I think even Rudy, are all saying, so Sean and Dirk are saying, we're trying, we're fishing, right? And Sean even says something that, failure to catch fish, he says, does not fail. It must mean failing to try, right? Yes, and then the very next shot is the two of them just lying on the raft, tanning. There's a hook in the water, right? And not surprisingly, once again, they don't catch anything.
Is this potentially a sort of semi-homoerotic moment?
I didn't see that at all, and especially with somebody like Dirk.
Clearly I see it all. Well, somebody like Dirk. I mean, religion and homoeroticism seem to go together, don't they? I'm not allowed to say that. I might know. Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, from what I've heard, those fishing kits on Survivor are worthless. They are no good, and so I don't know. I think
has anybody caught any fish on Survivor?
But they gave them more. They gave them fish traps. Right, and line, and Sean made the super pole, and they still didn't catch anything. Right,
I think the spear fishing seems to be more successful for people. I mean, you had Rich catch the eel, so that was pretty exciting.
Right. Now, I just wanted to flag something. I mean, again, like you said, everybody who is listening I hope has seen the episode. But Dirk says something interesting, though. He says, the second I stop having fun, I'll vote myself off the island.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm here to want to have fun and deepen my faith.
Yeah, he says that. He says, I came here to have a good time and grow my faith in the Lord, which is really interesting because I don't know. I mean, I guess from my perspective of you're there, why not try to also play the game? Sure, you can also have a good time and you can also have faith, you grow your faith, but why does that preclude you from also playing the game? And I guess that's not how it wasn't seen as a game back then. And it wasn't until it was only, Rich and a few other people that really saw it as a game. And whereas it was the social experiment or whatever. But I don't know. I just figure, why not also try to win the $1 million and grow in your faith? Bonus.
Right. And
they're not exclusive.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And then
his growing in his faith seems rather sort of insular. It was just about him lying on a hammock reading his Bible, or at least holding the Bible. He wasn't sort of doing anything.
We saw some discussions in the previous episodes about his attitude. The whole thing with Kelly, and the discussion of his virginity. So it doesn't come up in this episode, but it does definitely come up. And Dirk does say, I don't know if he's had this on the show, but he did end up leaving his Bible behind with Tagi. Right, he thought that they might find it useful. I don't know if any made any use of it. Rudy probably found a use for it, right? But he said, and I love this. He says, the only reason I can see for a Bible is to use it as toilet paper. He says, and I'm religious.
Yeah, that was fun. And they actually had Jeff nail tree mail to the tree, which I thought was kind of fun.
Nail what?
The tree mail that the notice about the challenge.
He didn't put it in the mailbox. Like
he literally nailed it to the tree. I'm like, it's
right. And it's what do they call it? I love this. This is the entire the title of this challenge is the first annual weapons target shooting classic, the Battle of Borneo. That is the name of they could have taken out a few of those words, but it's a reward challenge for food, right? And so they got 3 weapons. They get a blowgun, a mighty slingshot, as they call it, and a spear or like a javelin. And both tribes get this, right? And both get to practice. And so they can figure out, right, who's best at what, because only 3 people are going to play.
Right.
Yes.
And so again, like, so not surprisingly with Jervis, right? Everybody else on Pagong is practicing. And what is Jerv doing? Jervis is heckling, of course. Right. But somebody flagged this before. Jerv, he's doing everything wrong in the sense of the things that you would think that you would want to do to get along with a group of people. But he seems to just be so damn charismatic that it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But Rachel, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it does seem like it to me, especially like I said, coming up. But yeah, he's one of those social people, those charismatic people that people seem to be, eager to forgive, and just want to get along with, and that's a gift some people have. Right. Some people have that ability, and I mean, I think him winning this challenge at the end, I think, does also help him quite a bit to of course, it's the first time we finally see him be good at a challenge. Right. That's the next challenge. But so let's on the reward challenge for right now. Yeah.
So let's see. So the next challenge.
And also, I feel like they in the preparation and for this reward challenge, that I feel like they are very, very self-contained. Like Sue's looking at it as hers. I don't feel like they're looking at each other all that much as far as what the others are doing. So I think that maybe that's why he's able to skate away with just kind of not caring.
Right. And then Sue, of course, the famous quote where what is Sue would like the food and all that, but she really wants to dog a guy on national television. Right. Like, that is her goal.
Yeah.
She wants to what?
She wants to dog a guy, as she put it, like make him look bad. On national
really?
television.
So we find out that Sean is good at the blowgun, that Rich is good at the slingshot, that Sue is good at the javelin. Right. And so it's more on like an individual kind of basis. And Sue is very proud of that.
But she's not good enough. She doesn't win.
She ends up just losing. But she makes that comment actually twice, right before the challenge and after it. She's very sad that she was not able to defeat a guy on national TV. But like you said, she did quite well. Yes. Joel's shot is basically in the edge of the bullseye, right? The only way she could have won was to really get it right smack in the center. I think that I was actually surprised, and I guess they probably had a few hours to practice, but they all did quite well. But came down to, but we didn't really even see. But did we see for the blow darts and the slingshot? We know that they're hitting fruit.
We didn't see the blow darts.
Yeah, no, we saw some blow darts.
Did we?
We saw some, but we were not able to see.
Not in the competition.
Oh, maybe not in the competition.
We weren't able to see who was winning. And then in the middle of the challenge, Probst announces, okay, this is winner take all. So I'm guessing that maybe the blow darts and the slingshot, one was won by Tagi, one was won by Pagong.
Right.
Suddenly Probst says, hey, it's winner take all. It's just the javelin. And besides the fruit, there's also going to be another food reward for whichever tribe wins.
The thing I liked about this is that it was so homemade. Like the puzzles and the challenges now are all very professional and commercial and everything like that. And this felt like something that if I wanted to have a little Survivor party, I could come up with in my backyard.
You have to have a lot of crockery, I think.
Yeah,
yeah.
But it didn't have that like slick. Commercial feel of the challenges now, so it was kind of fun.
I think that's why people love it, though, because the other thing with the challenges these days is not just that they're commercial and they're slick, which they are, but they also tend to be very much the same thing over and over, right? And so such things as, like you said, this is something that they could just kind of make up, I can see in 3 days, okay, we need to have a challenge. What can we do? Let's do blow darts. Let's go. But it's enjoyable. Like, Rachel, I don't know if you watch Survivor, Australian Survivor. Not,
I haven't.
Okay. So one of the best challenges they ever had on Australian Survivor was a game of charades. It was very, very funny.
Oh, wow.
Really considered to be one of the best, and that's something that costs nothing. So
Right.
I do feel with production, I mean, it's wonderful that they have these huge budgets these days, but it seems to be making them less creative, not more.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. I agree.
Well, charades is tremendous fun anyway. There was something. Oh, there was something I was going to say, but it's a bit self-indulgent. I was quite good with a slingshot.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you're like
Yeah,
Rich.
Were you a naughty boy as a child with a slingshot?
No. I didn't come across it until quite late, and I was sort of 26 or 27, and I went off to Greece, and I found myself on a hillside with a lot of goats, and I was looking after goats, and I was given a slingshot, and I became quite an adept.
Okay, but what was the slingshot used for self-defense?
Well, no, heavens no! It's to get your goats to do what you want them to do. So you aim the stone beyond the goat, and then the goat, oh, someone's coming at me, and it goes towards you. Something there. Oh,
so you shoot them from behind, and
you shoot them from in front, but the stone goes over them.
And then they think something's coming from that end, and so they run towards you.
You mustn't frighten them too much, otherwise they fall over. They go, and they literally fall over, and then they
wait. I never heard this. You're saying if you frighten a goat, it falls over?
If you frighten a goat, it falls over, yes. Oh, I'm all right. No, really, it does. It really does. They're extraordinary animals, and they've all got distinctive noises. You can identify which goat it is, whether it's Dimitri or Yorgo or Panayota. The voices are not always. So
you named all of these goats.
What?
So you named all the goats.
I named them after all my friends in the village. Yes, there were quite a lot of them called Yorgo, and they were sacrificed for various parties regularly. So you know. But if you go into a Greek village and you say Yorgo, most of the boys will stand up, or Maria, most of the girls stand up. If you go to a football match and you say sort of Yorgo, half the crowd is wondering if you're talking to them personally.
So Sue's pretty upset that she loses the javelin. And that's one thing that's interesting about Sue is that she just took everything so personally. Everything.
Well, yes, I wasn't as upset about Sue's loss of the javelin thing as I was about Kelly's loss later on. And I just thought Kelly's bit was, I made a note, with ugly television. She just comes across as such a poor loser.
Well, definitely. But the only other thing I wanted to say about this challenge was the chickens. We'll talk. Just hold that thought, Kim, for 1 second, because the chickens, because this is important, right? Because this comes up again and again on Survivor.
Really?
Yes. So this is the first time. Right? The idea that they can win chickens is something that is, I mean, it's not every season, but it's been done many times. And what I discovered last week in doing some research is that it goes all the way back to the first season where PETA was picketing CBS in New York for animal abuse because of the chickens. And this is something, again, that has come up over and over again.
And when they win chickens in future, are they encouraged to build a chicken pen quickly?
Or they normally do have something. No,
I mean, it's up to them. They can eat them as soon as they want, or they can keep them for eggs, or they can do whatever they want.
Cruelty. Shouldn't you have chickens you shouldn't be keeping chickens in a box.
Right. Well, and I think I do think they did better in later seasons, but it was still, even just the fact that they were eating the chickens, I think that might be enough to upset PETA. And so fast forward 16 years into the future, right? Mm-hmm. At season 32, there were chickens, and one of the contestants was his name is Ty. He's originally from Vietnam. And he is a vegan, I believe, or certainly a vegetarian. Big animal lover. So he took this chicken he named Mark for his boyfriend. And that chicken turned into a dog. It followed him everywhere. He would bring it to tribal council.
Right. He kind of broke chickens for Survivor. Have we had them since?
And did his chickens lay eggs for him?
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't.
It depends on the season. But that is the thing. But it's quite common, this thing, that if they are laying eggs, then they get a reprieve. But if they're not, or just if they get hungry enough, then they are dinner. And it is very funny when they ask Jenna, does the chicken have names? And she shames them.
Breakfast, lunch,
dinner. That was funny.
I mean, I
forgot about that.
remember, you never, ever name something that you think you might want to eat.
Yeah, that was smart on her part. That was a smart name to get that.
Right, so that they don't get too attached to it. Right, because once you take a chicken and you name it for your boyfriend, right, you can't eat that chicken.
There's an extraordinary. Well, I named all my goats, and I must say I did enjoy a little sort of a leg of George, and the ear of Dimitri. Nothing after you name them. And you sort of stir it, and a little eyeball pops up like something out of Indiana Jones. I was going to say, are you aware that there's that the way to clean your chimney in medieval Britain, when your chicken stopped laying eggs, you tied its legs, dropped it down the chimney, it flapped a lot, cleaned the chimney, and that fright apparently energized it, so it laid a few more eggs before it was then slaughtered and killed.
There you go.
Wait, you're saying this was a thing in Greece? You're saying that
this was a thing in the UK in the Middle Ages.
Okay.
So
a chicken would stop laying eggs, and they would drop it down the chimney, and that had two advantages. They would clean out the chimney with their flocking, and then you're saying, and then you would have a chastened chicken who realizes
lay a few more eggs, and then when it stopped again, that would be the time to slaughter it. But this apparently was routine, and I think so fascinating. It must be.
It wasn't around for that.
So, didn't you love the scene though with Rich and the snake? I thought that was a really fun moment of a Survivor with this deadly snake, and he's just very like calm and cool, and wants to throw it in the ocean to see it swim. I mean, if it was me, I'd be like, freaking out.
I'm not particularly afraid of snakes. I mean, I guess that's a common fear. And I had a friend who had a pet snake, and it didn't bother me at all. But I also knew that it wasn't a dangerous snake. And Rich, right, like I said, he's on the show. He's saying, this is a 6 hour. We discussed this before, Tim, that, before they start to play the game, they give them kind of a little, lay of the land in terms of what there is to eat, what they can eat, what they can do, what they can't do.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is a yellow banded sea crate.
Yes.
Yeah, very deadly.
KIAIT, and it is. I think it's a 6 hour snake, because apparently I think with a lot of these you do need the anti-venom, but you can get it up to like 24 hours or something like that. Right. This is 6 hours, and they are in a very remote area. So if somebody were to get bitten, right, it really might be a problem. And I'm sure that they were told not to play with it.
You have anti-venom on hand in the medicine box.
Maybe.
But I just thought it was such a fun moment of sort of developing his character and really helping us get to know him better as a person.
Didn't you feel, Rachel, that it was rather set up?
Yeah, maybe, but I still had fun with it. I feel like it's still, even if it is set up, it's still a setup to get us to know what Rich is, who Rich is as a person.
Yeah. I was hoping for Mark Burnett was going to say something when I was reading his book. I did not see anything in terms of, did they have the anti-venom? Were they losing their minds when he was playing with the snake, or they had it and this was just, a fun moment? I was not able to get.
Who was the incredibly brave camera person who was filming that and getting very close, because the camera then.
The whole thing was very, very well done. It was very fun.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're watching an edited program, so you're watching something where they're going to give you what they want for you to build your relationship with these characters, with these people. And so when they have these little scenes, it's such a fun way of getting to know these characters. And so I really enjoyed that. And I don't know, it was interesting to see them.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it was interesting to see them try to make Greg and Colleen the couple, because that's something they never do. Like, it's just like, I feel like tribe romances are just showmances are just a thing of the past. And that's
so Tim, are you familiar with the term showmance?
Well, you introduced this to me a few weeks ago, and I was very excited, and I've tried using it in various contexts.
Yeah. It's pretty much just gone now. I mean,
but they still love to encourage, though, and especially on Big Brother.
Seems to be all about that.
In Big Brother. Big Brother's different, though.
Right. No, but even Survivor, I would say that they love this. Because they do have written hit. So, Tim, there are several couples that have met on Survivor and married and have children, etc.
But it's been a long time.
It's been a while. But
it's been a long time, and it's just different with Big Brother, because there you have a whole summer. Mm-hmm. You have you're in a nice place. Everybody's roughly around the same age. I think as opposed to in Survivor, where it's only 39 days, and for most of that you're in kind of not very good conditions. I think it's just something you just don't see very much anymore.
I think a little bit of misery drives romance.
You'd think, but it really doesn't. I mean, it's been a long time.
It's kind of so Colleen, I mean, it's funny. It's clear that the show is pushing this, and like Colleen's confessional, and she said it's all about sex. I think it's so obvious to me. She's being tongue in cheek.
Right, obviously.
I don't think there are any tongues at all. But Greg simply says, "We like to play together." Is that was he being?
He's just kidding.
I really think that they're both kidding. There were rumors that they dated after the show. I was not able to confirm that. She apparently had a fairly serious boyfriend. I mean, they're quite young, but that might also have been part of it. And again, I can't really understand, kissing somebody when you haven't brushed your teeth in 3 weeks, right? But it has been known to happen.
Well,
but in this case,
they probably weren't kissing on the lips. But I liked Greg's nesting.
Yes, his little bachelor bird nest, right?
Yeah, I just liked the idea of him nesting all together. I just thought, it was also very Tarzan. Don't you think? Where the gorillas say, "We will nest here tonight." I could see Greg doing that up in his tree. I also. So where was that tribe sleeping normally?
So I think it was in the last episode that they moved the shelter, right?
But
it was
quite down the shelter into the jungle, so they didn't. They just moved it to the edge of the jungle.
Back into the canopy, right? But not all the way into the woods.
But Greg,
I'm envisioning it
into the canopy.
Yeah,
and nest in a tree.
Exactly. I'm envisioning that they moved, like I said, just under the canopy, but they still have a clear view of the beach. Right, they just want to be out of the tides and all of that. Whereas Greg really goes much deeper, and then Colleen comes and joins him. And now there's a question, though, also in terms of this being good gameplay. And again, query to what extent any of them were really trying to play strategically. But that's why I wanted to flag this for showmances, because it is a very interesting dynamic. What they will or not doing, sexually almost doesn't matter. It's that if people start developing feelings for each other, then you have this situation where it's a game for $1 million, right? You're playing with somebody who is also trying to win the $1 million. And you never really know until the end of the game, are you just getting played?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But Colleen, you see, Greg is interesting, and Colleen seems to me to be a little bit dull.
Oh, America loved Colleen.
Really? Why?
Yes. They adored her.
I think they thought she was cute and fun.
Yeah, America's sweetheart. I'm not saying
she's got nothing to say.
She's not very interesting. Let's just admit that.
Okay. I'm so relieved I'm not missing the point here.
I don't think so. I'm thinking ahead, but I don't. I mean, she will speak more, but I'm not sure that she does anything to really. Yeah, but she doesn't really do anything. Like I said, her thing was being America's sweetheart.
Yeah,
right.
she's not a strategy.
Could easily have walked into Love Island. I felt she has nothing of sense to say, and she's quite pretty.
Yeah, so they're saying that's what you get on Love Island. Yeah, that's about right.
Right. Okay. No. Of course, I'm Tissy, mumsy.
But I mean, in fairness, everybody in this cast had no idea what they were really getting into, so it's a little bit, as far as I don't know, I don't think they really understood that they were signing up for a game. She probably was just like, okay.
Yeah, they knew that there was $1 million.
Did they know where they were going?
Yeah.
When they started this series, did they know where they were going? Did they know vaguely where they were going or what they were doing?
They certainly knew what they were doing, and they brought, clearly they got much more extensive wardrobes, right? We talked about this already in terms of preparing for the weather and all they got that.
But just in the sense of it had never been done before, and so like I feel, as far as character people not really playing that hard, I kind of give them a little bit of a pass because they've never seen it before.
Right. And they were there to have fun. Like I said, it's clear. Greg has said this. Dirk has said this. I think it's pretty clear with Sean. Right. And Sean is not a kid. Sean is around 30 years old and he's a neurosurgeon. Right.
And Sean,
he's there to play.
He doesn't want to form an alliance. He doesn't like alliances.
But he forms an alliance with Dirk, doesn't he? Effectively.
He wouldn't see it that way, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think they see that as an alliance. They see it as a friendship.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel it. Yeah, lots of sunbathing together.
Tim
but
is try again with the homoerotic.
I was entertaining myself. I think
he doesn't agree on the whole concept of an alliance, and he thinks he wants to keep himself sort of separate. And his whole strategy is if you can call it that.
Because I do feel like he could have been a decent player. He's obviously smart.
Yes.
With the exception of Sue, he does get along with people.
Just not very good at fishing.
Right. Not very good at fishing, but like you said, they're dealing with the supplies that they got. I've never really gotten, Tim, are you a fisherman? Because I've never really.
Not remotely. I think it's rather a boring thing to do. And B, I'm not a great fan of. I'm not a great fan of quite a lot of fish. I find, when you get some fish that are so sort of full of bones, you think, oh my God, this is going to be an exploratory experience. And and you sort of say, shall we have fish? And you think, oh God.
I'm also not the biggest.
Are you a fish cooker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you, Rachel? What's your favorite fish?
Probably salmon.
Yes. Salmon's easy. Beyond salmon. Can we go beyond salmon?
Yeah.
Beyond salmon, probably something like halibut.
Oh.
Yeah, yes, probably.
Karen, do you have a preferred fish?
I grew up really not eating fish at all, and I knew that it was healthy. And so at this point, I like sushi. I liked salmon and tuna. And then
tuna, yeah.
The first time I actually liked fish was when I tried raw tuna. Because as a kid, I didn't even like tuna fish, from a can. So I branched out to that. And I guess occasionally I've made like a very mild whitefish, like a sole or something like that, again, which doesn't really have much flavor. But no, I can talk recipes all day, but I'm not sure if that's what people are hearing.
Yeah, seems like we got to wrap things up here a little bit. Right. So we had the challenge, that was pretty devastating for Kelly because she was expected to win since she's a river rafter tour guide, and here's Jervis who can't even swim.
But they kept saying this. But Rachel, I have a question. They keep saying he can't swim, but the whole point is he's not swimming; he's rowing.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Yes.
It turns out they could have put Jervis in the water, though, because they do have life jackets, right? They felt as if they had no choice, right? Because he could drown. And then we see that they all do have life jackets. So they could have put him in. But
yeah. I mean, and he's, very athletic. So it probably, Kelly didn't probably have the advantage that maybe she was blaming herself for.
And Burnett also pointed out, she's a river guide, right? She may not have so much experience, rowing in the ocean. And he said that what happened was when they first started, Jervis was, went pretty straight. And Kelly, for whatever reason, the tide was kind of pulling her off to one side.
Yes,
Mm.
but she had bragged quite a lot before the challenge about how she was not only good at rowing, she was a water star or something, wasn't she?
Yeah, but the challenge really came down to upper arm strength. Your rowing wouldn't really help that much, and if you're and
the other thing that they did smart was that they picked up the strongest people first. Like Jervis, I think the first person they picked up.
Yeah.
Whereas with Kelly, I think the first person Kelly picks up is Sue, and Sue is decently strong, but probably not helping that much. But yeah, is this the first challenge where really it is just not even close? But when we do get, but this is also, Tim, one of the things that one learns if one watches a lot of reality TV, the more strongly someone is saying, "Oh, I'm great at that. I'm going to win. I'm amazing."
The more disastrous,
quite likely they're going to be a disaster.
Right.
You set yourself up to fail, and the television wouldn't be interested in you if you turned out to be good at it. They want to see that contrast.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you can win, but they do seem to love to set people up. Just in general, if you ever see somebody in confessional being confident about anything.
If you have somebody who's like, I have no chance of going home tonight. Get ready.
You're going home.
Somebody was egging Kelly on to say, oh, I'm a great water sports star.
They may have not. I mean, she may have genuinely felt that confident, but it's an edited program, so they're going to edit it to make the biggest sort of emotional impact that they can. And if they have her, then that's what they're going to do.
Right. But you said it before. She's definitely not being a good sport, right?
What was fascinating about this episode is in previous episodes, there's always been somebody I've sort of liked enormously as a result of that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Or felt sorry for. In this episode, I didn't really warm to anybody. I sort of slightly objected to quite a lot of people. I quite like Gervais, but I didn't. I felt in a way all the editing was designed to do people down in this particular episode, which is something I hadn't seen so far.
Well, as it keeps going, people become more complex, and so you're going to see good and bad from them. I don't know. I felt like like I said, I felt like Rich looked really. I liked Rich in this episode. I mean, like I said, coming up against that snake, and he just to me was a great character.
But then he's lying.
Yeah, he's playing the game, and he admits to lying, so that doesn't really bother me. He tells us this is what I'm doing.
Right,
he's an honest liar in a game.
In this water competition, I've flagged up something which really excites me.
Plus, Rich also provided eel for the whole tribe.
Yes, but it was disgusting. They hated it.
Yeah, but it's food. Food is food, and so I don't know. I thought he was this. I would say he's the one that I liked the most as just a character.
I always love Rudy. Rudy doesn't say much.
Yeah, Rudy was fun.
Always.
Rudy was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rudy. Once you've got into the spirit of Rudy, it doesn't really matter what he says. He's slightly dismissive of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we had in the votes, we had Rudy had a vote. And then
right, Rachel. Just before we get that, so let me just take one step back.
We've got two other things I wanted to flag up.
Okay, go ahead, Tim. What do you want?
Almost in an hour. So
was it? Oh, I'm so sorry. Was it Dirk who had his first bowel movement?
No, it was Sean.
That's actually a whole thing on Survivor because, not surprisingly, this becomes a real issue, especially if you're living on rice. Right. And you don't have access to a lot of water or whatever. People tend to get very, very constipated. And they talk about this, everybody who's been on the show, that it will come up sometimes in the TV product, but apparently this is something that they talk about endlessly. There are all techniques for trying to solve this. So in more modern Survivor, I think back then they had a shovel and they had an area. But in more recent seasons, they have perfected what is called the aqua dump, where some people will just kind of go into the ocean and relieve themselves there. And then you don't have to clean up, and then that solves the cleanliness problem.
Right.
Yes, swimming will be a great joy afterwards. But the other thing I noticed was you don't have boys. You have a buoy.
What do you mean?
The way you pronounce it.
That floats around in the water to indicate.
Oh, a buoy. Yeah.
A buoy. We would call it a buoy.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
No, I think we have the same spelling. Buoy.
Right.
Yeah. But,
is that right? Yeah.
But I would call it a buoy. I was brought up and sort of part of my life was on the seashore, so we're boys everywhere.
Interesting.
And you sail past the buoy, so you wouldn't really know what I was talking about. You would think I sort of yeah. Anyway, right. Sorry. Let's go on.
So just before they go to tribal, so they're talking about what they're going to do. So Sean is going to vote for Rudy.
Yes.
Rich now starts talking about the alliance. And Dirk said something about he's walking to my death. He said, I haven't been successful at much. But he says he knows he's seen as lazy, but he thinks that he'll be here tomorrow. And again, that's kind of those things that when they present us with a confessional like that, that's kind of a red flag.
Yes.
Right? You're probably not going to come out of it. So Rachel, so back to what you were saying about with Rich. Yeah, that he is now all in on the alliance. Right.
Right.
And he's with Kelly and Sue. And then Rudy also votes with them. But I'm not sure that we know quite yet that he has admitted that he is going to be in an alliance. Later he will. But it's those four. Yeah, I think by right, he does buy into the concept of the alliance as time goes on.
I thought there was a very interesting philosophical thing Dirk says. He talks about how he's failed at everything, but then he says something about he's put in a lot of effort, and I think if you're trying to survive, if you're on a desert island and you're trying to survive, it doesn't matter how much effort somebody puts in. You actually want to have product because you have to survive.
Right. But the effort does matter in the sense that if you don't want to be seen as lazy. This is something again that comes up over and over again in Survivor history.
So what was Dirk seen as lazy?
Because apparently, because Sean and Dirk were quote unquote, fishing, but they never ever brought home any fish. So at some point, right.
And Ramona was punished last week for being lazy, effectively. Mm-hmm. So being lazy is a no-no.
Yeah, it's a very, very important thing, especially from the beginning, right? This is one of those things, your first impression. If you come across as lazy, you've got to be.
What happened to Sean's bowling alley? Because that seems to have disappeared now.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we see it again.
Yeah.
Right, I see. So he put in a lot of effort into something which was pointless. That seems to be far more lazy.
Well, he even admits that to himself. He's like, I have kind of a nebulous role, he says.
Right.
And that he doesn't really even know what he's doing or contributing.
Yeah. Right. I love this. Yeah. That Probe says that. What's your role here? And he says, I don't know what I'm doing out here. I haven't found my niche, but I'll take it as far as I can.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if you're 5 episodes in, everybody else seems to have a job and a function.
5 episodes and 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. They've been 2 weeks together, and if after the end of 2 weeks you haven't found your niche, I think you're in the wrong show, really.
Right.
So then,
I think that's what everybody's point was just look, we understand you're trying with the fishing, right? But at some point, it's not working. Right. So do something else.
So is Sean on his way out as well now, or is he going to reform himself?
No, we'll see. No spoilers for Tim.
Yeah.
But we certainly do see, going forward, the Tagi has 5 people, and 4 of them are clearly working together. Even if Rudy is not admitting yet that he's going to be in an alliance, it's clear that he's close with Rich.
Yes.
And this will become what becomes known as the Tagi 4. This alliance.
Right.
Like Tagi is the name of the tribe, and these 4. And this is going to become important as the game goes on. So, but has anything else you wanted to say though about Rich's lie on tribal council? Because we started to discuss it and then we went off of it. Yeah, he kind of pops it off. I said, well, does he lie? Because I'm looking at what he says. He says, people do stuff together, like me and Rudy, and, and Sean and Dirk go fishing or whatever. And the alliance is the 6 of us. Yeah, I guess that's a lie. Okay?
Yeah.
It definitely is true that there are friendships within the alliance, right? And they might even have friendships from outside the alliance. But in terms of voting, that's really what an alliance is. Are you going to vote together? And
right.
the answer is yes. And Rich is lying about it. But this is something that comes up a lot, though, in Survivor. Because there's the confessional, where we really do want people to be honest with us, right? You don't have to be honest with the other players, but you need to be honest with us. And a tribal, Probst wants tribal to also be. He always talks about how it's a place where you have to come and, justify your actions and all that. But what we have come to see, even in this first episode, is that there is a game being played at Tribal, sometimes against Probst, right? Because he will press, he wants an answer to a question. And as a participant, your job is to not give him the information, but in such a way that he will accept it.
Yes.
Yeah,
and right. how much is he aware of at the time he gets to that meeting? Because he won't have seen all the edits, so...
Yeah, he will have seen some of the dailies that they've gotten, and
they certainly let him know. And they certainly let him know what has been going on. Now he's an executive producer, so he is definitely watching dailies every night. All this back then, they certainly gave, because they got all these camera people and and production people are on the beach. So yes, because that's how he has to know what questions to ask of whom. So yes, in some way, in some capacity, to some extent, he knows what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And again, these tribals, I don't know how long they are, in real life in these early seasons, but in more modern seasons, it goes on for 2 or 3 hours, and they edit it down to, 8 minutes max generally. Right. But a lot of that time is, I think, just kind of sparring. And people who have been on the show have talked about this, that, you don't want to blow up your game at Tribal Council. Jeff is trying to make good TV, and you're trying to not get voted out. So you can't just refuse to answer, right? Or make a lie that's so bad that, Probst won't accept it. But you're really kind of threading the needle there. Because he will get angry. Apparently, if, he's trying to, if he's trying to, and people are just not playing along, they just are not answering the questions, he's been known to get quite angry. I mean, that doesn't make the TV product. Right. But it really is apparently much more complex than we can necessarily see on the TV program.
Yes.
So, and again, he will be far from the last person to lie in Tribal Council.
But he in turn is quite happy.
Well, I mean, frankly, if he hadn't lied, that he would have, if he had, that would be a disservice. That would be an unkind thing to do to his alliance. You can't tell your alliance at Tribal Council. That would be unkind to them. And so he did in that situation, he did the morally correct thing to do, because those are the people that he's allied with, and he's not just going to rat them out at Tribal Council.
Right. No, but you're smart, right? But it's a good point to make, is that it's not just your own survival, it's your allies' survival.
Yeah. Right.
And did the girls approach him, or did he approach them? I can't remember.
I'm trying to remember. I mean, we discussed this. I believe that he approached Sue, but that was after. I mean, it's clear that this started with Stacy and Kelly. And then there certainly was a period with Rudy. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure that Rudy admitted that he was voting with the alliance quite yet. In fact, he was. But although on the other hand, if you think about who Rudy would vote for, if it was just up to him, he was going to vote for either Dirk or Sean. And I think that's probably true with everybody, because they were almost interchangeable in the sense that neither of them were interested in the alliance. And both of them were seen as lazy.
So, Rachel, if you were to go into Survivor, would you have plans for an alliance from the very beginning, or would you?
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure. But now the alliances have become a bit more. The people will flip on alliances more. They're a little bit less rigid as they were when the game was first going. And Rob Sesternino, our
Tim has met Rob. Tim was on our
okay, so Rob was practically invented that of just flipping from one alliance to another alliance.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he would put people in a position where they had to kind of welcome him back, because that was the only thing in their self-interest to do. And that's one thing that Survivor's so great at, is it's great at getting you to narrow down what your self-interest is and acting in that way. And the really great players are the people that can look at the other players playing with them and figure out what the self-interested thing is for all of these players with them. And if you can predict, then and that's what's hard when you have players who are just acting in total chaos and not in their self-interest. That's what's really challenging about it. Right. But just from if you're strategic, the best players are the ones who can predict the self-interest.
So if you were to have gone in with Pagon, who would you have formed an alliance with?
I don't know. It's too hard to say just off the top of my head.
See, I would choose Gretchen. I find it interesting that you don't like Gretchen, because I like her very much.
I would have formed an alliance immediately with Gretchen, but I don't particularly care for her. I would have made an effort, I think, because she seemed to me to be important.
Right. But there's another thing that you flagged, Rachel, that I think is really important, because we've been talking about lying, and that certainly happens in the game. But you want to be, I think the single best thing that one can have, ability that one can have if you want to win this game, even though this is somebody who never did win the game, with Cerie Fields, which is somebody, again, who comes on a later season, great player, played 4 times, was never able to win. But her job was to convince right? If you're on a team with Cerie's job is to convince you that something is in your interest when in fact it's in her.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Right. You plant an idea, you let somebody think that it's their idea. Right.
Yeah.
Even though it's and it benefits you, it may or may not benefit them, but it always benefits her.
Right. No, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's some very, very fine social machinations that go on. And again, I am not, there are many reasons I wouldn't go on Survivor, but one of them is, I don't have the patience. I tend to be the kind of person who says what I want, right? If I want something, I ask for it. And I'm not saying I never try to manipulate people, because we all do. But I don't, this kind of long game that some of these people play, like Rob or Cerie or whatever, where a period over days and weeks, they just sprinkle these little breadcrumbs to lead you to their desired conclusion. And it's amazing to watch with some of these people. And it's just not an ability that I have.
Yeah, it really is incredible to watch. But again, and I struggle in keeping the emotion out of it, especially when I'm tired, when I'm hungry, when I'm, all those things that I think the player that I think play the most like is probably on a good day would probably be someone like Dawn. That was very emotional, but she also had strategy.
This is from another season.
Yeah. And so that's somebody that on a good day would be me, but I don't know. But anyway, so Dirk is gone. Right. No more for Dirk.
Right. And it's also funny, so when you read Mark Burnett's book, he claims, and also I think Survivor historians claim, that this might have been the first blindside, right? Blindside is when somebody is voted out and they have no idea that it's coming.
Oh, right.
That other people have lied successfully enough that you think that it's not going to be you tonight, when in fact it is. Mm-hmm. But again, just going back and rewatching this today, that doesn't seem to be what's happening.
No.
It seems to be quite a point where. Yeah, exactly.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah. But then equally, production could have production could have asked all of them things like what would happen if you were to go today. I think production tends to do this anyway, just
I'm sure they did.
Right.
So
and we know that they got in trouble for doing that openly, right, with the Stacy boot. But do they plant seeds? Well, but again, you only have to plant seeds if you really care about the outcome. I'm not so sure at this point that production, neither Dirk nor Sean, they had some nice moments, but neither of them were such good TV, right? Unlike Rudy, where production might feel the need to keep you in the game.
Right.
Yes.
Right. The Toggy Four.
I thought Dirk had his moments. I thought that
he seems like a lovely guy, just not a particularly good Survivor player.
Yeah.
No, he's an appalling player.
I'm not even sure he was there to play. He was there to have fun.
Right. He said as much. He said, yeah. So
when he stops having fun,
I had visions. I had visions that he was going to become the object of quite a lot of animosity and become
a villain.
Yeah, no, and also, again, in terms of what we remember about these seasons that then turns out not to be true when we go back and rewatch, because my recollection was that Dirk got voted out for kind of, cramming religion down people's throats. Yeah, and there was maybe a little bit of that, but that doesn't seem to have anything to do with why he went home.
Right.
He went home because he was seen as lazy.
Right. Yeah.
Right? I mean, Sue and Rich, disagreed with him about religion, but I don't think that any of them felt so strongly that they need to get rid of him because of that.
It's a shame, really, isn't it, that he wasn't a very good fisherman, because that's a very biblical activity. He should have been a sort of, he should have been learning from the masters there.
Well, Rich had his own way of, like you said, Rich never tried, as far as we can see, with the line, right? He was just a spear fisherman. Right.
Yeah. So were there just not very many fish around that island, or was it just people?
Well, that's what happened at Pagong. They said, it's overfished. I mean, they're in the middle of nowhere. I don't think that it was overfished, and obviously, Rich had no problem spearing fish. So I don't. Yeah. I think but the reason that Rich was able to is not easy to fish with a spear. Rich had been doing it his whole life, right? He grew up in in Rhode Island on the beach.
Oh, really?
He was very, very comfortable in the water. Yeah, this was not new for him.
I see. Right.
No, and that's why
the eel is particularly unpleasant. I mean, he surely could have found a better fish to, and an eel must be quite difficult to spear. There's not very much width there.
Yeah, I've never eaten eel, and there was also a question of apparently it was a little bit overdone. But yeah, they were talking about it being, I don't even know there was there's a lot of cartilage. Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's something that I would enjoy. But again, Pagong was eating that.
Oh my goodness, is it sturgeon? It is sturgeon. Sturgeon is doesn't have bones; it just has cartilage.
Mm. Oh, really?
It's like munching your way through a piece of what do you call it? A plastic. It's quite unpleasant, really.
I was going to say that sounds fairly unpleasant.
It's unpleasant. It's unpleasant, and you go to Russia, you get sort of things of caviar, which isn't the most attractive looking stuff, and then you get sturgeon, and this is a treat, and you just sort of think, oh gosh,
yeah.
not my idea of fun. I think probably I prefer the eel.
Well, this was fun to talk about.
So that's. So I should ask both of you: is there anything that related to this episode that I didn't touch on that you wanted to speak about?
Not really. No,
I think we covered it.
I think we've got it. Okay, so then just going forward, so we have the next time, and we see that Rich is naked. Right, Rich is going to be running around with no clothes on.
Oh, yes, that presents camera problems, doesn't it?
Sorry?
That presents further problems for the camera people.
They just blur it.
Oh, right. I see. Okay.
And in fact, it turns out that Rich has been doing this the entire season. He claims that from the beginning he was naked several hours a day, but they only decided to focus on it at this point in the season. Mm. And then we have Jervis saying that girls are as stupid as cows.
Oh.
And we will see. Yes. And so we will have to see how that will play out next week.
And who specifically is he talking? So Rachel is a beautiful lady.
Sorry.
Oh yes.
Well, thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun to talk about.
Okay. So yeah, I think we've pretty much wrapped it up. Tim, I know you have your phone calls to go to. So let me just do a little bit of housekeeping. Coming up on Survivor NSFW, just looking if I got more information. The answer is no. So we now have on Survivor NSFW on the free side, we have the interview I've talked about last week with Sunday BURQUEST, who has been diagnosed again with 2 different kinds of cancer. That is up. Johnny will be live as usual on Wednesday night. I do not know exactly who his guest will be, but that you can find all that at Survivor NSFW. And on the patron side, you get, if you become a patron of Survivor NSFW, you get access to a special Facebook page. You get a weekly Q&A where you can ask questions to Johnny and to Matt Bischoff. There are special podcasts that are only released or released first on the patron page. So if you're interested in any of that, please check out Survivor NSFW on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. And also, as usual, if you buy a t-shirt from Johnny Fairplay at johnnyfairplay.com, you get a phone call from Johnny. And that is how I originally met Johnny all those years ago. Today, I'm not going to, I'm still trying to figure out how to highlight these t-shirts for you, but I am wearing this is a classic, the Die Jerks. This is a reference to something that happened on another season of the show where people actually are they're voted off and then they come back into the game, which is very controversial, and we'll discuss that later. But when this person, when he came back, he was wearing a sign that says "Die Jerks," and it comes in handy in many situations. I am about to go into work wearing it. So, sometimes it can communicate things that you don't want to say to people face to face. But in any case, thank you, everybody, for joining us, except for one of you, and you know who you are. We've had a little unpleasantness in the chat, but everybody else, thank you for joining us.
I've only just seen some of that, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah, let's not pay attention to him.
The internet is...
Internet,
it happens. I've got pretty thick skin.
Good. But thank you again for joining us, and we will look. Oh, and also next week, same time, same channel. Unfortunately, I can't share yet exactly who. I've not been able to finalize with the guest, so I don't want to say it yet. But we will be joined by a guest. Sorry,
I'm on tenterhooks.
Yes, we will have to surprise you next week. I'll probably tell you in the meantime. We do chat in between. Anyway, thank you very, very much, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Guys, I lost you guys for a second.
Wait, I'm ending.